Tyon Grant-Foster is still waiting for a waiver from the NCAA to play for Gonzaga this upcoming season. How long until it's time to start panicking?
You are Locked On Zags, your daily podcast on the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, y'all? Happy Monday and welcome into the Locked On Zags podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host and longtime Gonzaga podcaster, Andy Patton, here to bring you news and updates on all things Zag athletics. Today's episode of Locked On Zags is brought to you by Gametime. Folks, download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Lots to cover today. It is a mailbag edition of Locked On Zags. Thanks all of you to asking some great questions. Today, we're going to talk about Tyon Grant-Foster's status waiver for this upcoming season. We're going to talk about the Pac-12's travel schedule, what it means for Gonzaga, 32-game scheduling coming to college basketball next season, the odds of UNLV eventually joining Gonzaga in the Pac-12, some summer league stuff, all sorts of great topics to get to today. So we're going to get straight into it. Again, as a reminder, if you want to get involved in Mailbag Monday, you can email me, andypatton013@gmail.com. You can also join the Locked On Zags Discord channel. There's a spot to ask your mailbag questions there. You can also ask on social media, on Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram as well. This first question, in fact, does come from Instagram via Jack. Jack says, at what point should we be concerned about Tyon Grant-Foster's waiver? Is Gonzaga pursuing Ivan Bogdanovic? A sign the staff thinks Grant-Foster might not get his waiver approved? And what would that do to this team's upside or potential if he can't go? Yeah, so we'll talk here about Tyon Grant-Foster. The latest update I have is from Theo Lawson of the Spokesman Review, who got a chance to sit down briefly with Tyon Grant-Foster in Las Vegas, and he asked him about the waiver, and Grant-Foster said, quote, "We're still waiting on it right now. It's just a waiting process," which is not an entirely unsurprising update, unfortunately, from Grant-Foster or from the NCAA. These things take time. And they've had hundreds upon probably thousands of waivers they've had to parse throughout this offseason, especially in light of the rule changes with junior college eligibility and obviously still some guys coming off COVID and injuries and just various other things that have made this particular process even more difficult than usual for the NCAA. I'll give you a little reminder on kind of why Grant-Foster needed to apply for a waiver, what his eligibility status situation looks like, knowing that there's a lot more ins and outs and details to this than what we're able to kind of see publicly. But Tyon Grant-Foster spent the first 2 seasons of his post-high school playing career at the junior college level. That was back in the 2018-19 season and then the 2019-20 season. So 2 years at the junior college level. Then he went to Kansas, and he played 22 games at Kansas, which is obviously enough games to kind of consider a full season of eligibility. However, that was in the 2020-21 season, which is the year where everybody was granted an additional year because of COVID-19. So that year, in theory, should not be counting against Grant-Foster from an eligibility perspective. The next year, he was at DePaul, the 21-22 season. He played 1 game. Specifically, he played 1/2 of 1 game for DePaul before collapsing at halftime, eventually needing heart surgery and missing the entire rest of that season and the entire next season. So Grant-Foster played 2 years in junior college, 1 year at Kansas, which is COVID, 1 game at DePaul, then missed the entire season, the entire next season, did not return to college basketball until he was at Grand Canyon in the 23-24 season. That was the season where he was the WAC Player of the Year, averaged over 20 points per game, played 34 games. And then the next season was last year where he played 26 games for Grand Canyon, missed a little bit of time with some ankle injury stuff, but was ultimately healthy for the majority of the season. So if you look kind of through Grant-Foster's career, an entire missed season and then another season where he only played 1 game, obviously those will not count against him eligibility-wise. So that leaves you with 2 years in junior college, 1 year at Kansas, 2 years at Grand Canyon. On paper, again, that may look like, well, that's 4 seasons if you count JUCO as 1 season, 1 year at Kansas, 2 years at Grand Canyon. But again, the Kansas season shouldn't be held against him because of COVID. And the rules have now allowed players who played at the junior college level to be granted an extra year of eligibility while a pending lawsuit is going through the process regarding whether junior college years should count against your eligibility just in general going forward, as the lawsuit, which was started by Diego Pavia, a quarterback who played at Vanderbilt in the SEC last year, started at a JUCO and said, I didn't have the ability to make money in junior college, therefore that should not count against my eligibility. I'm not sure how that argument will stand or not, but it did grant everybody an extra year. So for GrantFoster, if his junior college years mean he has another year, if the Kansas year does not count against him, if the 2 seasons at DePaul where he played literally 20 minutes of basketball, those should not count against him. You have 2 seasons at Grand Canyon and then 1 season of junior college, effectively. So to me, I'm not sure there's a super compelling argument for his waiver to not get approved, knowing, of course, that the NCAA is going to NCAA, and sometimes they don't need a super compelling reason to come down with a ruling that doesn't make a lot of sense. Having said all of that, a few players this year who got waivers approved for an extra year of eligibility include Nate Biddle at Oregon, who's played 91 D1 games, Devin Cambridge, who's played 141 basketball games at the Division I level, and he got approved for another year. Chad Baker-Mazara played 119 career Division I basketball games and also played junior college basketball. So he's played JUCO and almost 120 games at the D1 level, and he got a waiver approved. Tyon Grant-Foster has played 83 games at the D1 level. That's 40 games less than Chad Baker-Mazara. If he does not get his waiver approved, while somebody like Baker-Mazara or Cambridge, who have more than a full season's worth of games played at the D1 level, then I don't know what we're doing. My concern is less that GrantFoster's waiver won't be approved, and it's more that it'll be denied initially for whatever reason, and then through the appeals process, it will eventually get approved. This is what happened with Alli Khalifa, center for Louisville this year, who similarly had a absolutely baffling decision come down from the NCAA denying his waiver for an extra year that made no sense. They very quickly moved to appeal and actually hired lawyers. And then within, I think, 3 weeks, the NCAA said, hey, we're rescinding that. You are now going to be eligible. For Louisville, since Khalifa was a student there last year, he was still around the team, still getting to go to practices, not practice, but go to the practices. And so it kind of didn't make a huge difference. For Gonzaga, if they have to wait an extra couple of weeks for the NCAA to reverse a bad decision, that's a couple of weeks that GrantFoster's not on campus, not with the team, not practicing, not learning the offense. So that's a really big deal. Ideally, this gets taken care of here very soon, and we're in a position where GrantFoster's with the team, starting to get all that familiarity, getting used to his teammates, the facilities, all that stuff, because right now he's kind of stuck in this limbo land, and it's frustrating because he's such an important part of what Gonzaga wants to do this upcoming season. To answer kind of the last part of the question, no, I don't think Gonzaga's pursuit of Ivan Bogdanovic means anything necessarily, although certainly if they were to land Bogdanovic, it would give them some insurance if GrantFoster were to be ineligible or suffer an injury or anything like that for this upcoming season. But I don't think it's the primary driving factor behind that decision. And then outside of that, if GrantFoster's not on the roster, or Gonzaga loses a secondary ball handler, or they lose an isolation scorer, they lose a veteran presence who's good defensively. They have talent at those positions to kind of mitigate some of those losses. Jalen Warley picks up a bigger role. He's a good facilitator and defender. He's just not much of a scorer. Steele Venters probably steps into a bigger role as more of an offensive player, a three-point shooter specifically. I think you see Mario Saint-Superi take on a bigger role, and you see Gonzaga playing some more two-guard lineups, maybe even three-guard lineups with Adam Miller out there as well. And Emmanuel Innocente is going to have to step into a bigger role as well. So Gonzaga's got the depth to handle not having GrantFoster, but they don't have the star power. And I think he brings some really valuable intangibles to this team. So they certainly do not want to not have him for this upcoming season. Next question here comes from Pilot Cam on Twitter, who says, which Zags have given themselves the best chance at making an NBA roster through the first few days of Summer League? Anyone you're especially impressed with or concerned about? Yeah, Ryan Nembhard looked absolutely great in his first game, 21 points, 8 of 14 shooting, doubled up Cooper Flagg in terms of total points scored. He had a go-ahead three-pointer in the final minute to lead Dallas to a win over the Lakers. It was an awesome performance. He did not look nearly as good in his second Summer League game. I think he shot 1 of 10 from the field in that game. He still had 7 assists in a game where Dallas only had 24 made field goals. So still a solid facilitation performance from him. He's drawn all sorts of praise. Mark Cuban talked about him. Chet Holmgren talked about him. Cooper Flagg talked about him. Everybody is loving what we've seen from Ryan Nembhard so far. He has done the most, I think, in my mind, to establish firmly that he belongs in the NBA. He's already on a two-way contract, so he was going to make it, but now I think it's even more likely that he's playing a big role for Dallas this upcoming season. Neither Nolan Hickman or Ben Gregg have played yet as of this recording. Hickman had not played in either of Dallas's first two games. Ben did not play in Boston's first game. Caleb Battle did play in his first 15 minutes of action for Phoenix, and he didn't look great. However, as I'm recording right now, Phoenix is playing the Atlanta Hawks in Summer League, and Battle is playing better in this game. He's already gotten to the free throw line 4 times, which he did not do in his first game, so that's good to see from him. Obviously, Drew Timme looked great. He had 22 points in his first game, was the best player on the floor for both Brooklyn and Oklahoma City combined. He already has a guaranteed NBA contract, but if there was any concern that, maybe somebody will outplay him and he'll lose his spot, he kind of put that to rest with a great first game for the Nets. And then last, Anton Watson is the player I'm concerned about. Sadly, unfortunately for Watson, he was on a two-way contract last year. This year, he's not on a two-way contract. When you lose your two-way contract, it's very difficult to get one back. And I feel and I fear for Anton that he may have only his 8 games or 9 games in the NBA last year may be the only 9 games he plays at that level. I hope I'm wrong, but it's going to be tough sledding for him. New York, the Knicks, where he's playing, he only played 5 minutes in their first summer league game. That is concerning to me. They played other bigs. Ariel Huck-Purdy played way more minutes. Kevin McCullough played way more minutes. I'm concerned that Watson's not high enough on the depth chart in even summer league to be a serious consideration for the Knicks or for any other NBA teams. And that makes me sad. I hope that I'm wrong and that he finds his way back into the league, but he's not in a great spot right now. Well, San Diego, Pullman, and Corvallis, they're familiar road trips for Gonzaga as they join the new Pac-12 next season. But what about the new cities? What about the new arenas, the new fan bases? We're going to talk about that coming up here in just a second. But first, folks, you ever decided at the last minute to head out to a ball game with your friends or your family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize, you know what? I want to be in the stands. I don't want to watch this thing on TV. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without all the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group of friends to come out with you to the park. Gametime makes it possible, and prices on the app, they actually drop the closer that you get to first pitch. And they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear views from your seat, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Gametime is the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB, making it easy to browse the app for an upcoming exciting MLB game. And the most exciting game that can happen is happening on Tuesday, the All-Star Game in Atlanta. Tickets, true to form, they have dropped on Gametime. Right now, you can get zone deals in the home run port. That's a good place to be for an all-star game for just $279. That's 31% off the original listed price. So folks, take the guesswork out of buying tickets by using Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms apply. Download the Gametime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. All right, folks, segment 2, still Andy Patton, still Locked On Zags podcast, still hammering through Mailbag Monday here as we're into another week here in July on the show. These next questions come from Jeff via Gmail, mostly related to Gonzaga's upcoming move into the Pac-12 conference in the 26-27 season. This question from Jeff, he says, if you were to rank the 9 conference road trips Gonzaga will take in the Pac-12, including Las Vegas, how would you rank them, with 1 being the best and most exciting trip and 9 being the least exciting or interesting trip? All right, Jeff, I did this in 2 different categories, city and actual team. So for the first 9, it's Fort Collins and Corvallis and Pullman and all the cities. And then the second one, it's Colorado State, Boise State, Fresno State. So basically, what are the most exciting cities or places to go from a Gonzaga fan perspective? And then what are the most exciting arenas and teams for Gonzaga to face on the road? Hope that makes sense. For the cities, number 1 for me is Fort Collins. And this may be a bit controversial, but Fort Collins is beautiful. It's located in Colorado. It's in the mountains. It's an incredible area, gorgeous place. Colorado State's campus is very cool. I don't think that the Rams specifically are the most exciting road trip for Gonzaga, but Fort Collins is an incredibly cool place. I have a buddy who lives out there, hoping to be able to take a road trip out there to see him and see a game in the not too distant future. San Diego's number 2. Obviously, Gonzaga, a lot of Gonzaga fans have already been to San Diego, either to see them play the Aztecs in a non-conference game or to see them play the Toreros in the WCC. So San Diego is not a new place necessarily, but obviously it's an incredibly fun city for a lot of reasons, and the weather is beautiful, so not a bad place to be. Number 3 is Boise. Boise is a fun city. It's not too far from Spokane. Obviously, Boise State being in the conference is going to be very fun for a lot of reasons as well, but I think Boise as a city doesn't get as much love as it perhaps should. Number 4, again, maybe controversial here. I'm going San Marcos, Texas. That is, of course, where Texas State is playing their games. This is about halfway between Austin and San Antonio. I say halfway. It's a little closer to Austin. Beautiful. It looks like the campus is incredible. There's a river running through it. If you haven't seen like videos of campus, Texas State looks awesome. And it's an incredibly new place and a new city, a new state really for Gonzaga. So I think they get a little bit of a bump because of that. Number 5 is Logan, also beautiful, also located in the mountains like Fort Collins. Not quite as fun as Fort Collins in my mind, but still a fun little city. And then you have Corvallis and Pullman. You could argue those either way. I think Corvallis is a little bit more exciting than Pullman, but that might be a little bit of bias on my part, living much closer to Corvallis than Pullman. Either way, neither are the most exciting cities. They're just big college towns, which has their ups and downs. Number 8 is Las Vegas, and it's only not last because Fresno is last, because Fresno is not a particularly fun or interesting place to go. Las Vegas, we're all kind of familiar with, probably a little bit done. I will say for Vegas, at least, the likelihood that Gonzaga's games will be played in a more exciting venue in Las Vegas than at the Orleans Arena at least gives it a little bit of a bump for the conference championships. And then redoing this, but instead of talking about the cities, talking about the specific teams and the road trips to see those teams. This order is probably a bit more predictable. San Diego State, number 1, Viejas is going to be absolutely rocking every time Gonzaga goes to town. I think that's the obvious kind of next rivalry for the Zags in conference play. Number 2, I went with Boise State over Washington State. It's pretty close. Boise State, I think, because of the newness, because Gonzaga has not played them in such a long time since Leon Rice has been the head coach. I think it gets a bit of a bump. Boise is also a more exciting town than Pullman, but Pullman's got there's some nastiness between Spokane and Pullman, so it's hard to deny that as well. I actually went Utah State, number 4. They have the second biggest arena in the conference, I believe, and that place is absolutely rocking. It's not quite Marriott Center levels, which is where BYU played, but I think that fans who are maybe discounting this are going to be surprised the first time Gonzaga steps into Logan and plays the Aggies of Utah State. Number 5, I went Colorado State, some of the same reasoning, just ahead of Oregon State. That's maybe a bit controversial, especially after Corvallis really brought the house down last time Gonzaga played there in that overtime loss for the Zags. That arena in Corvallis, the arena for Oregon State was at Gill Coliseum, absolutely popping off. So those two are both close for me. Then I go Vegas, then I go Texas State, and then still Fresno State at the bottom again. Probably Fresno State's probably a better basketball team than Texas State, but Texas State seems to have a pretty engaged fan base, whereas Fresno, I'm not super sold on what Fresno is going to bring to this conference on the basketball side of things. Next question, another one from Jeff. Jeff says, with NCAA basketball schedules increasing to 32 regular season games for the 26-27 season, how do you think that could help or hurt Gonzaga? Could the increase to 32 games be the thing that keeps many of the 8-team MTEs like Maui, Atlantis, and others going for the next decade or so? Yeah, I think this is a lifeline for those 8-team 3-game MTEs. Battle for Atlantis, Maui Invitational, etc. Those events were on life support because of the Players Era NIL Festival, which has come through and just gobbled up some of the best teams in college basketball, signing many of them to 3-year deals, which just decimates the chances of things like Maui and Atlantis getting those marquee games that they need. If you're just getting, I think Maui this year is mostly mid-majors. There's not a lot of high major teams, and that's a death sentence for an event like that relies heavily on people traveling long distances to come to those games. At mid-major schools, you're just less likely to get fans willing to do that. So this is a huge advantage for those types of events going forward. For Gonzaga, I'm not sure how much of a difference it makes. Gonzaga schedules very aggressively already. They want to continue to do that on the non-conference side of things. So this gives them more opportunities to do that. Looks like the Pac-12 schedule is going to be just 16 games early on, as they're going to have every team's going to play 8 teams twice, so that's 16 games. If it stays 16, that means Gonzaga has a ton of non-conference games to play with. That's good for them because they're already committed to the Players Era Festival for a couple more years. They already have, long-term scheduling agreements with Baylor and Kentucky and other teams like that. So it gives them a chance to add some more bye games, to add some more kind of maybe mid-level non-conference opponents. I think it's a good thing overall for the Zags. And even if the Pac-12 conference eventually expands to 18 games, which I think it probably will, that Gonzaga still has enough non-conference games to play with. And of course, we'll be in a conference where they're not as in the WCC. Gonzaga has to schedule well in the non-conference. And when they don't, or when they think that they did, but it turns out a lot of those teams stumble, like last year where Baylor and UCLA and some of those other teams weren't as good, UConn weren't as good as Gonzaga was hoping they would be. That makes their schedule a lot more precarious. The Pac-12 will have enough talent at the top of the conference that shouldn't be as big of an issue for them. Well, folks, sticking with the Pac-12, will UNLV eventually end up in the Pac-12 after they deal with all their litigation and everything with the Mountain West Conference? Could that come with Nevada joining as well? We're going to talk about that and another expansion target to close out the show coming up in just a second. All right, folks, segment 3, still Andy Patton, still Locked On Zags podcast, closing out the show with 2 more mailbag questions here, both from Jeff via Gmail. Jeff says, a year from now, after UNLV gets paid their $20 million from the Mountain West, how long do you think it takes for them to bolt for the Pac-12? If you were facing a two-part question, sorry. If you were facing a future possibility of picking either A, football-only Pac-12 membership for Memphis and UConn with a basketball scheduling agreement, or B, all-sports Pac-12 membership for UNLV and Nevada, which one would you favor and why? And would or could the addition of all sports with UTSA or Tulane added to either option change your opinion? Okay, a couple things to get here. Number one, we'll just get this out of the way. UTSA and Tulane do nothing for me. They do not move the needle on either space. For the conference collectively, they do, and I get that, and I understand that. But for me personally, and for Gonzaga, they mean nothing. They're in negative, frankly, because Gonzaga does not want to take road trips to San Antonio and road trips to Tulane to play bad basketball teams. If choosing between Memphis and UConn with a basketball scheduling agreement, but they're only in football, or adding UNLV and Nevada in totality, I would choose the scheduling agreement. Because UNLV and Nevada is a good basketball program, although they are inconsistent, and I do not think that they are reliable enough that joining the conference will automatically and consistently year over year boost the overall value of the Pac-12 from a men's basketball perspective. And UNLV has not been very good. They have a new coach, and I think that there's some excitement there, but while they're still financially really struggling, which is the first part of this question, I don't buy UNLV and Nevada being good enough to raise the bar of the Pac-12 all that significantly, and not at the level where I think Memphis football and UConn football, frankly, are better. Even though UConn football is not very good, just adding Memphis football alone is a better addition to the Pac-12 than UNLV and Nevada football. Nevada football is horrendous. So for the actual Pac-12, adding Memphis and UConn for football and scheduling agreement is better. And for Gonzaga, fairly consistently getting to schedule either Memphis or UConn as a non-conference game is better to me than adding a guaranteed 4 conference games against a struggling UNLV program and an inconsistent Nevada team. I would rather have the Memphis UConn additions as well. Having said all of that, I don't think we're guaranteed that UNLV is bolting for the Pac-12 as soon as possible. The Rebels have made it very clear that they are hoping, waiting, wanting, desiring an invitation from another power conference. Whether they get that or not remains to be seen. They're angling for the Big 12, and they're trying to just sell the heck out of Las Vegas as a destination. But conferences like the Pac-12 and the Big 12 and others are just using Las Vegas whenever the hell they want and are not needing the Rebels to specifically help in that space. UNLV's got a huge disadvantage being so far in the hole financially. And while, yes, they're going to get a big payday from the Mountain West, I don't think that is enough for them to get a ton of attention from conferences like the Big 12 or any of the other power conferences. But that seems to be what they want. So I think as long as they're angling for that, they're not going to settle for the Pac-12. And I think the Pac-12, sure, they would like them, they would like to add them, but I don't think it's a huge, if the Pac-12 really wanted them, they'd have added them the first time around. So I'm not sure either side is that interested to the point where I don't think that this is something that's inevitable to happen as soon as this payout happens from the Mountain West. Final question of the show comes from Jeff. Jeff says, I've heard some chatter about the Pac-12 pursuing Dallas Baptist as an affiliate member in baseball. Baseball is the only sport Dallas Baptist participates in at the D1 level, and their baseball team is really good. This seems like a smart move by the Pac-12 that could be done very cheaply and would improve the Pac-12 in baseball. What do you think about the possibility of Dallas Baptist to the Pac-12? So I have seen this as well, but the places that I have seen this are people commenting on the Pac-12 subreddit, and that's not a reliable source. It is possible there are other reliable sources out there, or semi-reliable sources, or people that are not random strangers on the internet who are saying this. I say that because until I have seen it from a source that has any kind of veritability, I don't really trust this as anything more than fans posturing on what it could be. Does it make sense? Yeah, I think so. Oregon State is a premier college baseball brand, and the Pac-12 wants to keep them happy. And adding Dallas Baptist, who is as Jeff noted, an incredibly good baseball program. They are routinely getting 5, 6, 7 players drafted in the MLB draft. They are routinely one of the better programs, especially kind of an unaffiliated program that doesn't have D1 sports outside of Dallas Baptist. It's weird and it's surprising, but this is a tremendous baseball program. So yeah, I think it makes some sense. Obviously the travel's not great, but I think for baseball, like one road trip out to Dallas, for Gonzaga, like they're just going to say, hey, get us the first weekend every year, get us out to Dallas because our field's still covered in snow. So we'd love to go out there, play in the sunshine. Gonzaga's first month or so of their season is typically played out in Texas or somewhere in SEC country anyway. So I don't think this is that big of a deal. And I think that the cost is virtually nothing. If you're only adding an affiliate sport in baseball, if that's the only thing you're adding, it costs you nothing. Like it's basically free. It's a very good program. It boosts a sport that does matter, not nearly as much as football or basketball, but it's not hurting those sports to add Dallas Baptist as a baseball only member. I think it'd be awesome. I love college baseball. I think Dallas Baptist would be really cool to play Gonzaga every year, to play Oregon State every year. I think it'd be an awesome addition, but I just don't know that it's worth really thinking about as a serious option until we hear something other than Redditors commenting about it on social media. All right, that's going to wrap it up for me today, folks. Thanks again so much for making the show your first listen or your first watch of the day. I sincerely appreciate all of you who are regular, everyday listeners to Locked On Zags, especially here in the thick of the college basketball offseason. We got some fun stuff coming your way this week, some guests lined up. We got more summer league conversation, more recruiting conversations, more conference realignment and media deal and all that stuff coming up as well. If you haven't done so yet, hit that subscribe button on YouTube so you get notified every time there is a new show. It is very much appreciated. Thanks again, folks. Have a fantastic rest of your day. And of course, as always, go Zags.